Hello, hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome back to the Jim Arrow Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremiah. And today we're talking about social media. Before I get into that, though, I was going to do an episode on Black millionaires. And I still have that. I still will probably put that up. But in all my research and recording, I actually sat in my chair recording for well over an hour and a half. And I've had to really take my time to go down, shave the audio, make sure that I apply all the statistics and stuff properly onto the video editor. So just have some patience with me, and that one's still going up. Just it might be a little bit because, like I said, I was only recording for over an hour and a half, and like for those of you that don't know, it really takes with any type of content creation, it usually takes 4 or 5 times the amount of time that you recorded just to finish editing. So yeah, we're talking about social media today. And you know, my typical formula, I'm going to provide some statistics. But I usually do a lot more research on certain topics. And I feel like that's kind of been holding me back from me just kind of expressing my thoughts. I'm a very outspoken person. And that's kind of the reason why I started this podcast, was so that I could use my outspoken personality to kind of like come across to people and maybe add a different perspective. So on the other topics that I did like a lot more research than I did writing down my actual thoughts about stuff. And it might have come across, to me, it sounded like I was just coming across as just, you know, sitting here reading statistics to you guys. And I've got nothing but positive feedback since starting this podcast, and it's all very much appreciated. But I'd like to put a little bit more of my own personal spin on this type of thing. So I chose social media because it's an easy topic to talk about. Very easy. I've got strong opinions as far as social media. And I got some statistics on here that I felt were interesting, because I'm not going to be the type of guy like it's about finding a good balance between sitting here and talking about things that add perspective and give you a little more knowledge, and me just sitting here ranting all day. I'm trying to find that sweet spot right there in the middle. But I got some statistics to keep it interesting. And I also have very strong opinions. So, social media, you know, I didn't even look up the definition of social media. I would define social media as, you know, any major platform that connects you with like other people, you know, in app form, you know, like, cause you going outside and talking to people is not like social media. That's just being social without the media. Yeah, that's what I consider social media. It's like any major like app or downloadable platform that connects you to a mass audience or other people, giving you like free reign to just openly talk to whoever you want. That's kind of what I see as social media. Okay, so yeah. And what is my opinion on social media? I think social media, well, before social media, a little bit bigger picture, I think that the world is constantly changing. So before we say, oh, I love or hate social media, we have to look at the world that dominates social media. So I'm not one of those people that says, oh yeah, since social media came out, da 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 da, because there was nothing that we could have ever really done about it. The world is constantly changing. So in that mindset, we have to accept social media as an existing entity, and pull from that idea what we can. We can't sit here and say life would be so much better without social media, because that might not necessarily be true. We can't sit here and say, oh yeah, social media is this, that, and the other. In the mindset of what life would be like without social media, because social media exists and there's nothing we can do about it. It's already here. So having an adaptive mindset is important. So what do I think about social media individually? I think social media definitely has its drawbacks, major drawbacks, and I'll get into that. But I don't think that social media is so detrimental. I think social media has done a really amazing amount of good. I was having a great conversation in my group chat with my mans Keenan and Craig. We were talking about social media, and we all had different opinions. That, that's what makes our debate so good. But we were talking about how social media is kind of like an extreme. It's kind of like having the the ability to shoot off like nuclear weapons. Like you've got all this like or any like technology of the sort. That's what Craig was kind of alluding to. He was saying that social media is like having the technology that can change the world, but it can be used for total destruction. That's social media is essentially, I see it as pretty much the same thing. I think that social media does a lot of good. The spread of information is incredible, and that's, yes, bad information, but good information too. You know, look at the Black Lives Matter movement. That's just off the top of my head. The support was so lacking. Yes, of course, because of the time, but also because of the lack of information, and just the veil of ignorance. Social media like catapulted Black Lives Matter. Sure, it's been marginalized in some areas, but it catapulted that information and made it a worldwide movement in a matter of months. You know, and yeah, we're still waiting for the world to change on that, but that applied a bunch of pressure. I mean, literally, when George Floyd died, literally within like 2-3 months, you had people in countries across the world lining up in mass in protest just off of the treatment of black people. I think that's incredible. And even on a smaller scale, overall connectivity is really important. You know, 20 years ago when social media wasn't that big of a deal, we would have, you know, people would be growing up only knowing maybe the limited amount of people that they like talked to and knew. And I'm a humanitarian. I believe that everybody provides greatness in each other's lives strictly by being unique and being themselves, being in their identity of freedom. So having social media is fantastic for connectivity because you're able to stay connected with more people longer. Now, the negatives. From people's reckless words to the constant putting down of each other to people's just spamming nonsense to how social media affects your personal, like how you see yourself by looking at others. Social media is literally just it's a reckless ride. And that's why I said I think that social media is a good, if you're using it for good, if you're using social media and surrounding your social media presence with positivity, it can show you things that you like never think of. Like, you get on Twitter or something every single day and learn something new. You get on Facebook or Instagram and see stuff that people are doing and you're like, wow, that's really cool. I'm proud of you for achieving that. And it motivates me to want to do something different, But man, Twitter, when I first got on Twitter, it was like 2013. I didn't understand it at first. I got off of Twitter and I came back on maybe like 2015. And it was like, the reason why I got on was because Facebook was so bad with getting on Facebook and seeing everybody that like I was growing up with, going to middle school with, and high school, just constantly arguing on the timeline and putting the drama out there and this, that, and the other, and having such strong opinions about things that just are not important. And so I used to get on Twitter, and Twitter was the place where all of the jokes and the videos were. King Bach Vines were going up at the time. Like, I was just on Twitter. I never got on Vine. By the time I got an iPhone, Vine was already dying. But Twitter would repost all the Vines, and I would be just on Twitter for a while, just scrolling the timeline, laughing at jokes, laughing with my cousin Kyrie, and like, so like Twitter is hilarious. And Instagram too. When me and my cousin, it was in the summertime, I think of 2014 or something like that. When me and my cousin first found out that Instagram had changed their like settings so that now whenever you post a picture, instead of it just showing a whole bunch of people's names listed, it said 10 likes. And then it would just, once it got to 10 likes, it just became a number. So at the time, me and my cousin, because we were new to Instagram, we didn't have that many followers, maybe like literally like 40 or something like that, both of us. But we started posting pictures like every day of us like just hanging out or whatever. because we really wanted to get to that 10 likes. And I remember one day we went to Arundel Mills and posted a selfie. It was me, Kyrie, and Raheem. And we posted a selfie and it finally got like 11 likes. That was like the highlight of the day. But that's what that's what social media used to be, you know? It was really just about being chill and stuff like that. And I understand people grow with time. People become more opinionated with time. But it just seems like it just became overwhelming with the time, you know? Now, like when I look at it now, Facebook is way more chill than Twitter. Like Twitter just seems like a place where the term misery loves company is just flourishing, because you see whatever other people retweets and you see what other people tweet, and you see like the opinions that just fling back and forth, gender battles, race battles, you know, profession battles, sex worker conversations, just so much like nonsense on all these different topics. And I lately, I'll talk about it in a second. And when I was on Twitter, I found myself asking myself more and more, like I was really trying to like filter all the nonsense. Like, get on Twitter, first thing you see is 10 straight tweets. Yo, men are trash. All men are dogs, liars, boil their penises in lava, da-da-da. I'm like, yo, relax. Like, why are you... And then you scroll down a little bit more and see people saying, people that give you compliments are really just manipulating your emotions for mistrust. I really be like, yo, I be reading this stuff and I'm like, yo, where do y'all get your opinions, bro? Life is not this manipulative. Like, the core of life is not deception. Like, and it's like whole, like, and then somebody will post a picture of like them at work or something like that. Everybody underneath is like, basically is like, why aren't you a millionaire? Why aren't you making millions of dollars right now? You know what I'm saying? And then like you got other people that like post themselves that, you know, may have been blessed with a lot of money, and everybody's underneath say like, why aren't you donating to charity? Like, why aren't you using your money to further this? It's not necessarily those specific things, but it's the energy. Like, anytime anybody, like when I'm on Twitter, I see anybody post something and the first thing is just floods of people disagreeing with whatever's being posted. And most of it's nonsense. Instagram changes their algorithm. The Instagram algorithm is trash right now, because it used to be you could go on there and see the pictures chronologically. Now it's interactive. It's interactive based. So people only get their pictures like seen if people like comment and interact with them and like. And you know, like a lot of my pictures I would post, and I noticed the numbers was going down since the algorithm changed. And one of my friends was like, yeah, like people really got to like comment under that joint a bunch of times and like share that joint for it to pop up. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. So the numbers are going down. People aren't even seeing each other's photos like that unless it's like the popular people, you know? So, and like I said, Facebook now seems a lot more chill. So that's the big three. Don't even get me started on Snapchat. Snapchat's just wild. So I've actually been on, like, for Lent, I gave up social media. So at the time I'm recording this video or this audio on March 15th, I'm pretty much a month into not being on any social media. I haven't been on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, nothing. I've been watching Hulu and reading. Like, I've been reading on my Kindle app and going outside. No, I'm playing. But I'm a month into being off of social media. And I got off of social media because, for those of you that don't know, I suffer, I don't like the word suffer. I have severe anxiety. I've always had severe anxiety since I was a kid. I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder when I was like 8. Like, I've always had severe anxiety. So, and most of the time I manage it very well. Like, you know, it's not something that cripples me day to day. But I noticed in the last year, I've gone through a lot of trials, and my anxiety has kind of spiked a little bit. But I noticed that being on social media, obviously was making it worse. And not necessarily in a way where I was like, oh, like I'm not being interacted with this type of stuff. And I even got to a good place where I looked at stuff on social media and was like, yeah, I really don't got to reply to any of this. I can just keep it pushing. Like I got really good at just ignoring the BS, but it's still kind of like affected like how I saw people, like how I saw my friends on social media, or how I started looking at people and kind of dissecting them when they talked. Like I would, like if I'm talking to somebody, I'm listening to them talk and I'm already kind of like dissecting how they feel about certain situations and stuff like that. So that was the problem. I would get anxiety going on there and just reading so many different ways in which like me as a man will always be destined to be a terrible father and a terrible husband, you know, and or going down and seeing like black people argue with other black people about what type of black people have it worse as a black person. And I you know, or the people that go on there and be like, you know, like I said, oh, compliments is really just deception and manipulation to create mistrust. Like, it, you know, and then Instagram, like, I love seeing on Instagram people post like all the different aspects of their life, but it just seems lately like I get on Instagram and the only thing that I see is, oh, I gotta post so people can see how big my butt is, or oh, I gotta post so people can know that like this sunlight hits me perfectly, even though I've posted this like same angled selfie for 8 days in a row, you know. And like I said, Instagram being an algorithm instead of it being like chronological just made it so that like that's all that I saw. I wasn't seeing none of my friends who was posting their kids. I wasn't seeing none of my like photography friends that was posting some of their work, or some of my rapper friends that were posting their videos and stuff like that, you know. And so what happens is I started having to watch people's stories because the stories are still chronological, kind of. The stories are chronological, but they also go based off of like who you've watched like the most. So I started watching people's stories because people put their posts in the stories, and the stories are even worse. Like the stories is where people put their posts as well as their opinions, and that's where it gets crazy. And I found myself kind of falling in some of the same pattern. That's why like I try to dial it back and like talk about things that I like only feel strongly about, because I don't want people to be like, oh, Jeremiah, here he goes ranting again. Where was I? Okay, so that's why I took the break from social media. I gave it up for Lent. My fiance Jessica gave up social media for Lent last year. She still barely gets on social media, and I wasn't as like, I didn't really understand it at the time, because I was more like plugged in, and I'll still be plugged into social media, but you know, giving it up for Lent was a good call, you know. Giving it up for Lent was a good call, because social media, like I said, can be great for spreading information, expressing yourself, putting your crafts, your talents out there for people to look at you and be like, oh yeah, like you know, this guy has this to offer. Everybody has something to offer. But like I said, the anxiety can make things worse with people's opinions, how callous people are to each other. I don't want to sound like Joker, but like nobody's civil anymore. Like everybody is so horrible to each other on the internet. It's like, yo, you get on the internet and the only thing you see are laser beams, like straight laser beams of just people insulting each other. Like somebody might disagree, saying like, yo, I really don't think pineapples belong on pizza. And this guy would be like, dang, I kind of think you're crazy because I think pineapples belong on pizza. And somebody will go and find that person's like pictures of that person's family and be like, yo, your family is ugly and they're never going to amount to nothing. I'm like, yo, these dudes are really like the opposite of Smurfs. Like these dudes are really wild. I will never post a picture of of my family or anything on Twitter. I refuse. I'm not, because Twitter would be the reason why like I've gone viral a couple of times for like, you know, other stuff. I don't want to go viral and have somebody go pull pictures of my fiance and my daughter and start getting thousands and thousands of retweets of them roasting them, because I will catch a case. I will catch a body. I'm not putting myself in that position. I save that for Instagram because I control who follows me. Facebook is mostly family anyways. But yeah, that's why I got off of social media. It was making my anxiety worse. It was making my anxiety spike. And a month in, I haven't really missed it. When I get back on social media, I know for a fact that, I have a pretty good social media presence. I don't really follow wild stuff. Like, I don't really read into anything that I see is not worth the time, And that's what I want to talk about. Like, limiting yourself, exposure is important. Exposure changes how you see things. People's perspectives of you and of anything surrounding anything can change just off of social media. That's another reason why I got off, because it was changing how I saw my friends. When I would see my friends' opinions on there, and I would be like, dang, this is really a wild opinion, or you really act wild on this social media presence, even though in real life you may be one of my best friends. The way people's retweets, when you see who retweeted it and see the opinions that some of your friends might fling back and forth, it changes how you see them. So limiting exposure is very, very important. Get on any social media and just start spamming the information. Start spamming anything that we feels needs to be shared. You really don't do it. Your exposure changes how you see things. You will literally change. The human brain is so complex, you will change how you see everything just off of what you expose yourself to. I had a philosophy professor that explained that to me, and it's really funny. I feel like she's seen the Star Wars movies, but I think she was saying that it's taken her a long time, because she said, Professor Reichard, she said she refuses to watch the Star Wars movies because she doesn't want to watch the deterioration from that innocent little Anakin Skywalker turn into Darth Vader. She doesn't want to watch that transformation because it'll change her, it'll hurt her. And that makes sense. That's a complex idea that I don't think people understand with social media, is that we change it, but we are experiencing what we're exposing ourselves to. So limiting your exposure is just so important. That's where the anxiety comes in, by just constantly surrounding yourself with the negative opinions of others, and you may be losing friends or losing respect for people that you really love just off of the things that they say on social media. You don't want that to happen. Social media should not be that powerful in your life. And that's the point of this podcast. So yeah, that's social media. So I've got some statistics here. I'm going to read them off to you guys. Like I said, I got some statistics. So since the release of smartphones, mental health concerns have increased in children and young adults. The rate of adolescents reporting symptoms of major depression in a given year increased by 52% from 2005 to 2017. From 2009 to 2017 alone, it grew 63% in adults ages 18 to 25, and I'm 25. Experiencing psychological distress in a given month grew 71% in young adults from 2008 to 2017. Even worse, the rate of suicidal thoughts in young adults increased 47% during that time. For older adults, there was no significant increase in these mental health issues during the same periods, because older adults don't be on social media. Children and young adults experience the most impact. This isn't a huge surprise since they use social media the most and grew up as digital natives, but the statistics are shocking. True. More than 1 in 3 adults, 38%, see social media use as harmful. Only 5% of young adults think that it's positive. Only 5% of adults think that social media is a positive force. Spending more than 3 hours on social media per day puts adolescents at a higher risk for mental health problems, and they bring that back up later on. People talk about themselves. I found this interesting. People talk about themselves around 30 to 40% of the time in person. On social media, people talk about themselves 80% of the time. So when they receive a notification of positive feedback, they feel a positive sensation from dopamine. And there's an image that is on here The dopamine reward loop. Pick up your phone. Step 1, step 2, dopamine increases once you get a notification. Step 3, you feel happy. Step 4, dopamine decreases. Creates a resistance. You're chasing the high. It's that easy. It is that easy. A study found that 89% of undergraduate students experience phantom vibrations. This is the perception of vibrations from a mobile device that isn't vibrating. People crave receiving notifications so much that they start imagining them. And I know you guys have experienced this. I've experienced this. I know you guys have experienced this. You're sitting down, maybe you're driving, your phone is sitting in your lap, and you, even though your car is in full motion, you feel like the phone moved. So you pick it up, check to see if somebody texted you. That's a phantom vibration. And I've always been interested by this concept because the phantom vibrations could be seen as something so small. Oh yeah, like I was moving or something, I thought my phone vibrated. Or are we so like tied to the idea of getting constant notifications on our cell phones that it becomes automatic? Like it feels forced, like it feels like automatic that any slight movement in our pocket has to be a phone notification. So don't be reliant. Don't be that reliant on it. And the last one that I have is limiting social media use is the best way to improve mental health. Using Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat for only 10 minutes per day for 3 weeks led to lower loneliness and depression. But reducing social media use to even 30 minutes per day results in significantly lower levels of anxiety, depression, loneliness, sleep problems, and FOMO, which is fear of missing out. Those are my statistics. They all say pretty much the same thing that I've been saying. Exposure, limiting what you expose yourself to, because everybody's opinions on social media are so strong. People like to spread the stuff that's not chill. That's what the news does. They share, it's shock culture. They share things that elicit a reaction. So limit your exposure. Social media is very powerful if you're using it to spread positivity. You're using it to spread things that people can learn about, spreading that positivity, spreading unity, letting people know, okay, this is a problem, but we're unified in trying to make it better. Not getting on social media and seeing how the 1,001 different ways that men are just terrible. Getting on anywhere and seeing, politics and stuff literally divide humans, and that's fine. But limit your exposure for social media. Social media should not be that powerful. It should honestly be the lowest form of entertainment that you get on a day-to-day basis. It really should. Learning new skills, keeping yourself busy, constantly being at work, spending time with people around you, reaching out to your friends and saying, hey, let's go get lunch. We don't got to spend a bunch of money. Let's go to Fridays and spend $20 on appetizers and just sit and talk. When you're going on dates, I got a friend of mine, shout out to Nate. He goes on dates. He puts his phone away. So is that all I have to say today? I think this has been a pretty good episode. It's been pretty chill. I'm definitely going to shave this bitch down. I've been recording. At this point, it's been about 35 minutes recording. We'll see how I'll probably shave it down. I always like the episodes to be only around like 25 minutes or so. Yeah, social media. That's how I feel about social media. I don't think it's terrible. I just think that it can be used in a terrible way. You want to get on social media, not only seeing the good out of all the people that you love and know, and your friends and your family, but you also want to learn. You also want to see things that make you happy, make you smile. All of those things are important. So that's how I feel about social media. And like the articles was saying, limiting social media is very important. So limit social media. Even if you bring it down to only using social media for like 1 hour a day or 30 minutes a day, get used to that. I hope you guys learned a little bit from this. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for tuning into the Jim Arrow Podcast. This is getting more and more lit. I'm enjoying myself a lot more. I hope you guys are not tired of my opinions just yet. But until then, have a blessed day. Have a blessed week. And Remember to be the best version of yourself because you can.